Today we're going to tackle a few of the biggest questions you will come across as a Christian. These are fundamental questions that every single person who ever exists, whether they're Christian or not, will wrestle with at some point in their lives. These are the same questions that everyone has. You need to understand that God is not scared of your questions. Okay? He's not scared of anything that you have to ask. In fact, He encourages us to ask questions. But these questions are fairly simple, but their implications are vast. Like, who are we? Why are we here? And what happens next? And from these questions, more questions form. Like, is there any evidence that there is a God? If so, where did God come from? What is God? All of these questions will be answered and more today on this episode of the Metal Bible. The Bible makes some pretty outlandish claims from the very, very beginning. Within the first few words, the Hebrew says, Bereshit bara Elohim. And those words are translated as, in the beginning, God. Now, just those few words have a whole lot to say. Because in the beginning of what? The beginning of time. In the beginning, God. So at the beginning of time, there's already this being that exists. Elohim, God, right? And from that, we can understand that this being exists outside of time. He literally created time. In fact, if we go on, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The heavens, in this context, is speaking of basically the universe. And He created the earth. So in the beginning, we have time. There's a being that created time and created everything in the known universe. So at the very beginning of everything, God already existed. This is why you'll get people who say, well, who created God? When would the creator of time be created? Think about that question, okay? Somebody who creates time, when would they be created? It's a very simple sentence, but its implications are profound. Let me put it this way. If I were to go and create a video game, right, and we had a character in there, an NPC, a non-playable character, and you went and you were able to talk to this NPC, this character that was created by me, and you were to ask that character in the video game to describe me, the creator, how would he be able to do that? Would he be able to do that? Of course not. He would not be able to even put to words because he wouldn't have a concept for anything outside of his world. So when we're actually trying to describe God, we're like that NPC player, the character, trying to describe its programmer. And God is like the programmer. God exists outside of His own program. He is not held by time. He doesn't have to follow the rules of physics. He created them. He isn't constrained to our material world. We don't have a concept to understand God. We can only barely put to words what we think He really is. And that's true in the text as well. These people who are writing the text, sometimes you can see them and they're like grasping for words to try to understand the Creator and to try to put to words something that is unable to be expressed. So when we dig through this text, we have to understand that these people, especially back then, had even less of an understanding of the natural world than we do. And they're trying to describe something. Now, if the Bible were to have been written today, we would describe it a little differently, right? The way I like to describe it as God is the sole hyperdimensional being who exists beyond and above everything. There is only one like him, and there are no other beings that are like him. And then there's all of these other beings that he created that exist in these other dimensions, the spiritual realm, that are also on a plane that we cannot physically see. Because you see, we experience 4 dimensions. We are 3-dimensional beings who experience 4 dimensions. But science has already proven that there are at least 10. And God exists. He created all of those. But all these other supernatural beings exist within these 10 dimensions. And God being alone by himself above all of them. Now, God is described as 3 persons in one. And that's kind of hard for us to understand, or even there's not really any metaphors for it. You can try, but all of them end up being heretical in some way or another. But we exist in 3 dimensions, right? So it makes sense that a hyperdimensional being, the sole hyperdimensional being, expresses himself in 3 persons, yet are all still the same being. Now, we can't fully grasp that. We can't wrap our minds around the Trinity and understand truly how that works. But we know that it is there. It is in the text. I know there's a lot of other religions who will deny the Trinity, deny that Jesus is God, that the Holy Spirit is God, and that the Father is God, and that they are all Yahweh. But that's exactly what the text says. So in the beginning, God. Just think about that. Because that has profound implications just from those few words. Now, I know this episode has been kind of short. Typically, I'll be doing some longer episodes. But on this next episode, we're really going to start digging into the weeds. We're going to go through some of the theories of creation. Because I know that there are theories of evolution and theories of how life came to be on the secular side. But some of you may not be aware that there are actually many theories of creation. And there's a ton of evidence for these theories. You don't get to have a monopoly on the evidence. And there are plenty of scientists who are creationists who are coming up with some of the most amazing theories, like the early world before the flood and how incredible it was. It was nothing like the world that we live in today. It looked nothing like this. When God made the world, he made it perfect. And as a result, all of creation was much better than it is today. Humans, their bodies were built better. They were the Neanderthals. The Neanderthal is a human being. It's actually built better. And that comes from the pre-flood world, from people that live a longer time. And we'll dig further into that. But the animals, there's 10-foot tall camels in Canada. So people will say that dinosaurs are the best proof against the Bible. But I would counter that and say that dinosaurs are actually one of the best proofs for the Bible. We're going to start digging into some of my favorite parts to talk about, because there's just so much evidence for these theories of creation. And there are some that are competing. There's like the hydroplate theory. There's the theory that the Earth, the canopy theory. There's a whole lot of different theories based on how that pre-flood world was, but there's one thing we know for certain, is that it was nothing like it is now. When God made Eden in the pre-flood world, he created that garden inside of a landscape that was amazing. And I'm going to show you, because we have evidence for all of this. And you're not really told much about this when you're in school. You're not told about any of this evidence. They'll kind of briefly go over the things like the megafauna and the gigantic creatures of every single type, like rats the size of VW bugs, armadillos that are 3.5 feet tall and 5 feet long. You got clamshells that are 6 feet wide, found on the top of mountains. This is really exciting stuff that we're going to get into. And the church has done a really bad job of teaching this. When I was growing up, I had all these questions, like, where are dinosaurs in the Bible? What about evolution? Does that fit into the Bible? We're going to go through all of these things over the next couple of episodes. And I promise you, you'll be blown away with how much evidence there is for the creation that God made, and how absolutely astonishing it all is. So I'm Caton the Berean, and this has been the Metal Bible.